The Abandoned Mech by J.W. Robertson. Copyright 2025. All rights reserved. A tiny young woman, or maybe preteen girl, is walking through a fallow field. She's wearing a tan-colored shirt and brown jeans, which may have once been part of a soldier's uniform. A pair of goggles help protect her eyes from the bright sun, and a green piece of cloth wrapped around her head and face protects her further. The field is littered with the remnants of an old battlefield. She has no idea what the field looked like before the battle occurred. It always looked like this to her. Destroyed tanks, trucks, and mechs are scattered as far as she can see. The mechs are 10 to 15 meters in height, and they come in a variety of shapes and colors. Most are box types that have two large arm cannons and two long legs. Large bomb craters and long ditches are prevalent throughout the field. Some of the ditches contain long-forgotten belongings of a long-forgotten army. Rusted-out footlockers, communication equipment, and weapons. A rattling sound follows behind the young girl. She drags a makeshift cart behind her. It contains an amazing find. An undamaged military battery. No holes, no leaking battery acid, and shiny battery leads. She found it inside a half-buried tank that had minimal interior damage. She's heading to her base camp for her prize. At camp, she has an almost repaired mech. In between scavenging, farming, and surviving, she's been using the mech repair as a form of self-meditation. She hasn't talked to anyone since her parents died, and she's afraid of going insane without something meaningful to do. She's found that the mechs have very modular parts, and they can be swapped in and out fairly easily. She supposes this is the case, since soldiers needed to focus on killing and destroying things and not repairing things. She's been able to replace most of the damaged parts in the red mech she likes to call Big Old Red. However, once she discovered she needed a new military battery, it took her 6 months to find an intact one. Her camp is next to a group of tall, scraggly trees. A collection of camouflage tarps and netting hang from the trees at various angles to block out the sun throughout the hot day. At night, she's been most comfortable sleeping inside her mech. She's taken to this practice because of the possibility of roving bandits fighting her camp. It's very unlikely, but her parents have taught her a world of caution before they passed. A large garden sits next to the camp, and it's a major source of her food. She also survives on the canned food left by the destroyed army. She drags her cart underneath the mech and looks up. About 6 meters above her, she sees the panel that leads to the battery compartment. With a manual winch inside the mech, she can lower the bottom plate and swap out the battery. Then, she can winch it back up. Once in place, a few solar panels on top of the mech should trickle charge the battery. She climbs up a handmade ladder to the human-sized hole drilled through the bottom of the mech. This hole is not the pilot's entrance. It was a hole created by the fire larva, the creature that decimated this army and most of the armies on the planet. When a fiery meteorite hit the planet, the threat it posed wasn't known until months later, when the larva emerged and attacked the first human settlement. The creatures that emerged looked like a giant human-sized insect larva, and this creature could create a superheated ball of plasma on their heads. They used that ball of plasma to burn through anything to get to their favorite prey, humans. During the first attack, every human was killed in a matter of hours. Large burn holes were found leading to every human's location in that settlement. The holes went through wood, stone, brick, cement, and steel. Nothing could stop the fire larva's progress. After initial attack, the humans had a 2-week reprieve while the larva numbers increased. A few weeks later, another larger settlement was attacked, and the larva horde grew further. Then 2 settlements were attacked, then 4. After each attack, the larva numbers increased. At that attack and growth rate, the fire larva would quickly decimate the planet. Between attacks, the humans found that the larva burrowed and reproduced underground. During this reproduction period, they are most vulnerable. So during one such growing period, the planet banded together for one large planet-wide assault against the larva. It failed spectacularly, and 99% of the force was destroyed. To avoid annihilation, people went into hiding, or if possible, they went into orbit. Eventually, the fire larva ran out of food, and they starved to death. The humans that managed to survive those 5 long years, called the fire years, came out of hiding and tried to rebuild the decimated planet. Many survivors, like her parents, quickly died in new harsh conditions. An advanced civilization was rocked to the Stone Age in only a few short years. However, she survived and thrived. She wasn't used to an easy life, and she was immune to many diseases that plagued the fire larva survivors. While her parents were alive, she absorbed as much useful knowledge as possible, and she even learned to read. The red mech she's currently climbing into is a casualty of that war long ago, and she wanted to bring it back to life. She decided she could use it to help farm, or for defense, or to travel around, or to blow shit up. She was kind of bored. Once inside the mech, she cranks the battery panel to the ground level. She climbs down, with a butterfly feeling in her stomach. She's extremely excited. If the battery works, the mech could be coming to life any moment. After half an hour, she's able to manhandle the heavy battery onto the panel. She tiredly climbs up the ladder. Before she cranks the battery back into the mech, she needs to replenish her energy. Inside the mech, she's stored a box of mystery food cans. The labels on the cans have rotted away, and she's not sure what she'll get. She opens a can and she eats some sweet red mystery fruit. This is a lot better than her last meal of congealed soup. After enjoying her meal, she has the energy to crank away on the handle and lift the battery into the mech. She finds a hand-sized battery connector plug and inserts it into the battery. She patiently waits for the mech to come alive, but after 10 minutes, nothing seems to have happened. She crawls around inside the mech looking for any sign of life. She finally enters the pilot's cockpit and sits in the main chair. She's patched a large hole in the chair with some cloth, and she's covered the chair in a sheet. She tries not to think about the brownish-red stains and dust on the cockpit floor and seat. As she's settling into the chair, she sees a small green light. Her heart skips a beat. She rubs her hand on the control panel containing the light, and she sees the white words that read, "Charging." As she stares at the light, it gets dimmer and dimmer. Fear grips her. After all that work, it's dying. Then she looks out the cockpit, and she sees the sun setting. She's relieved. She thought the battery's dead, but the solar panels only work during the day. That must be it. It will start charging in the morning. She's barely able to sleep that night, and she's wide awake before sunrise. When the sun starts to rise, the charging light slowly turns on and brightens. She literally stares at the light for half an hour to make sure it doesn't turn off. She eventually notices a little bar underneath the charging light. The bar contains 8 sections, and in one section has a tiny sliver of yellow. She screams out, "It's charging!" Her excitement doesn't last long, because at the end of the day, the lights will look exactly the same. It takes a week before she notices the sliver of yellow has doubled in size. Exasperated, she moans, "I'm going to be dead for this thing charges." She climbs down the mech and spends a day taking care of her garden. Near the end of the day, she stares at the mech. It's a box variety of 2 L-shaped arms and 2 long legs. On the top of the box, an array of solar panels and antennae point at the sky. At the end of the arms, an array of barrels and ports point forward menacingly. And beneath the barrels, where one would expect a human hand, a 4-fingered claw hangs motionless. She's learned that each shoulder acts as a gun magazine, and they contain a variety of bullets and rockets. She's been unable to look inside the magazines, and she assumes they can only be swapped out whole. She thinks, "Big old red is looking like big old brown." After a moment, she smacks herself on the forehead. "I need to clean the solar panels. They're probably covered in dirt. When I found old red, it was always being rained on, but now it's covered by my tarps. The windstorms have blown brown dust and dirt all over her." She quickly climbs down the mech and enters the cockpit. She pulls the lever to open the exterior canopy, and she uses a set of handholds to climb to the top of the mech. With a couple of rags and a water bottle, she cleans off the dirt covering the solar panels. After several minutes wiping with her wet rag, the previous dirty panel is shining in the fading sunlight. She can see the little square cells in the solar panel. The following morning, she climbs some of the nearby trees and unties the ropes holding many of the tarps above the mech. She wants as much light hitting the panels as possible. That evening, when she checks the battery status, the first bar is completely green, and the second bar is half yellow. "Yes!" she yells out. "Woohoo! I did it! Mom and Dad will be proud." Feeling extremely tired from the day's exertions and her large emotional outburst, she falls asleep in the mech cockpit while staring at the charging bar. When she awakes, she watches the sun slowly rising on the horizon. Then she notices some dark silhouettes moving on the hills. She sits up straight in the cockpit seat. What am I seeing? She pops open the exterior hatch, and she quickly climbs atop the mech. As the sun rises further, the shapes resolve into a group of men. "Man, should I call out?" she thinks. The men carry long clubs and spears on their shoulders, and a few seem to have rifles slung on their backs. They have large backpacks, dripping with traveling gear. The man in the rear is holding rope that's attached to a small person at the back of their line. "Bandits!" She quickly climbs back into the cockpit, pulls it closed. She moves to her entry hole, and she tries to pull her makeshift ladder up. When it's halfway into the bot, she can't pull it up any further. "Oh no, it doesn't fit! I'm an idiot!" She pulls out her survival knife and starts to cut the ropes holding the ladder together. Once one rung is cut off, she lowers the ladder until she has access to the next rung. She keeps cutting the rungs off until she reaches the end of the ladder. She drops to the ground just as she hears a voice call out, "Hello?" She peers out the bottom of the mech, and she sees a group of men surrounding her camp. A few start rummaging through her belongings, and a few dig through her garden. "That stuff's mine!" she yells out. The men hear a female voice, and they all stop and stare at the hole in the mech. The man who previously spoke speaks out again. "Hey, little lady, why don't you make this easy for us and come down?" She peers down, and she sees a speaker. He's holding a rope that leads to a girl about her size and age. The girl looks bruised and battered. Her eyes have a haunted and pained look. In his other hand, he's holding a handgun. He raises the gun up and points it at her. "I said, come down!" yells the lead bandit. She scrambles away from the hole. The bandit fires his gun, and a bullet flies into the mech above her head. It slams in the mech interior. A moment later, a few more bullets are fired into the mech, and she flinches as they shatter against the metal walls. A few bullet fragments hit her skin and burn. Ha ha! We'll get you out of there soon enough, he yells. She hides against the wall for several minutes. She hopes the men will take what they want and leave soon. If not, she can wait in the mech for days, since she has stored food and water. She listens to the men talk quietly to each other. They start ravaging through her camp and digging through her garden. She's extremely angry at the violation, but she's at a loss on what to do. She's stuck 6 meters in the air. After another 10 minutes, she smells smoke. After another minute, the smoke starts to get denser. She coughs as the rancid smoke starts to fill the mech's interior. "Come out, little girl, and we'll stop," yells the bandit. She peeks out the hole, and she sees the gun-wielding bandit adding trash to a large roaring fire underneath the mech. She coughs harder and starts to swoon. She stumbles into the mech's cockpit and pulls the handle to open the cockpit canopy. The canopy pops open, and she breathes in fresh air. "That won't help you, little lady. We can stay here all day and night." Her eyes start to refocus as she glances down at the mech's control panel. She sees a blinking start button. The mech has enough power to start, she thinks. She slams her hand down on the start button, and the entire mech shudders. Speakers near her ears turn on, and a robotic voice starts a series of announcements. Alert! Damage in the lower floor compartment. Alert! High temps detected below the lower floor compartment. Alert! Canopy open. Close the canopy to gain full functionality. Warning! Battery level is low. Notice! Maintenance is overdue. The screen turns on next to the start button, and it displays an image of the mech, and the numerous alerts are pointed out on the image. Another image displays an overhead map of the men walking around the mech. The men are marked as undefined. "Undefined? What is that?" she says. The robotic voice answers. "All heat signatures are undefined. No friendly or hostile targets have been identified." "Oh," she says as a bullet flies past her head and smashes in the cockpit seat. She crouches down, and her face is near the second screen. The undefined marker on the man has changed. Possible hostile. The robotic voice blurts out, "Incoming fire. Alert. Canopy open. Close the canopy to gain full functionality." She jumps up and pulls the canopy closed. Another shot rings out, but it's easily deflected off the canopy glass. "Alert. Possible hostile. Request permission to engage." She yells out, "Engage!" On the screen, the possible hostile text turns to hostile. She hears a ripping sound from her right ear. Flashes appear from the right gun ports on the arm, and the man disappears in a puff of dirt, smoke, and blood. "Alert! High temps detected below the lower floor compartment. Permission to move." "Move!" she yells. The mech walks forward and away from the fire. It walks through some tarps and it tramples a small tree. More shots are fired. She glances at the screen, and 2 more men are marked as possible hostile. "Engage!" she yells. The mech body spins 180 degrees on its legs. The left and right guns open fire, and the bandit targets disappear. The other targets on the screen change from undefined to possible hostile. She sees the smallest target also marked as possible hostile. She touches the screen and yells, "No! Not this one!" The target designator changes to friendly on the small target. She yells, "Engage!" The mech shudders as more rounds are expended. All the targets disappear except one. The mech body spins 360 degrees before it stops. All hostiles eliminated. Alert. Damage in the lower floor compartment. Warning. Battery level is low. Notice. Maintenance is overdue. After her heart stops racing, she looks at the nearly destroyed camp. She sees the other young woman holding her hands to her head and shaking with fear. She asks the mech, "Can you let me out?" The mech's knees fold in half, and the mech's body is placed on the ground. The canopy opens. The robotic voice blares out, entering standby mode, charging. Then it quiets, and the mech powers down. She exits and runs to her newfound friend. She thinks, maybe together we can repair a mech for her too.